All right. It is 6 o'clock on Tuesday, December 6th, 2022, and I am calling to order the Placerville Planning Commission meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Rivas, could you please call roll?
Good evening, everyone. Let's see. We have Vice Chair Friend.
Here.
Chair Goppert.
Here.
Commissioner Keeney.
Here.
Commissioner Lepper. Absent. Commissioner List.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. We have no closed session report tonight, so we will be moving on to adoption of the agenda.
Staff has comments on the agenda.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me all right? Now it's on? Okay. So we'd like to make a correction to item 11.1 and remove request for continuation. That was a mistake added in.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just simply strike that, I presume.
Yes, please.
Cut and pasting can be hazardous to an agenda.
Would anybody like to make a
I'll make
motion?
that motion to adopt our agenda as amended.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. So the adoption of the agenda passes 4-0. We'll now be moving on to our consent calendar. There is one item on tonight's consent calendar, which is approving the meeting minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of November 15th, 2022. Would any member of the public like to make a comment on the consent calendar? All right, I see none, so I will bring it back to the commission. Anybody
I'll move that we adopt the minutes from the meeting of November 15th, 2022.
Second.
All right, I have a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstention. Abstention, as I was not present.
Great. So we have the motion passes 3 with 1 abstention by Commissioner Friend. We have no items that were pulled from the consent calendar, so we will now move on to items of interest to the public and public conduct for non-agenda items. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the Commission on any matter that is not on the agenda and is in the subject matter within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Would any member of the public like to make a comment on an item that is not in the jurisdiction or not on tonight's agenda? You will have 3 minutes to address the Commission.
Good evening, everyone. Almost Merry Christmas. So, downtown looks fantastic. Just wanted to bring to your attention a recycling center up on the Broadway end of town. I just have concern that everything from bottle caps and cigarette butts and you name what is working its way into the creek. There's no real barrier. I've watched them. They do a great job of cleaning the yard up afterwards at the end of the day. Big backpack blower, and looks like he even puts down bleach and water to clear the asphalt. But I'm just concerned that any debris up and down the city is just getting into the creek. So if something could just be done about that. So, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place to ask for consideration of condemnation of a property and or conservatorship. So I don't know if anyone can give me quick feedback on that, because there is a property I would recommend. Is the Planning Commission an appropriate place for that?
Yes, you can make your comments related to that.
So staff is aware, but there is a property in the city. Nothing's been done with it for 15 plus years. Completely falling apart. It's been broken into by the homeless, and something really needs to move it along out of the condition it's in. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Are there any other comments on non-agenda items? All right, I see none. So I will bring it back to the commission. Would staff like to respond to any of the questions asked by the public?
I would just add that staff appreciates the comments about the recycling center up on Broadway. We're aware of that. Recycling center is under a permit, and we can certainly look and make sure that they're maintaining good housekeeping. They shouldn't be allowing debris and garbage to go into the creek, so we can look at that. As far as the neglected properties, I'm assuming you're referring to a property that's on Mosquito. We have consulted with California Receivership, and so they are analyzing the property for actually putting the property in the receivership. So thank you for bringing that up. We are attempting to deal with that property. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any written communications?
None.
Great. So we are now going to move on to item number 9, presentations and educational workshop sessions, and item 9.1, and I'm going to be turning this over to Vice Chair Friend.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll defer to staff to initiate the item, please.
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair Friend. We just wanted to take this opportunity to recognize our outgoing planning commissioner. She will be moving on to higher office. We congratulate her on her election to the city council. This will be her last meeting. So this is an opportunity then for the first part will be for the planning commission to recognize her. A resolution has been prepared for the commission, and then staff also has a brief presentation that we'd like to provide as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to the Vice Chair Friend.
So I think before I read the resolution 22-02, I would invite other members of the commission if they have any comments or things, recognition of Commissioner Gottberg that they would like to present first.
Thank you. Congratulations, Commissioner, and now soon-to-be Councilmember Gottberg. It's been my pleasure to work with you for too short a time, but good luck in your future endeavors, and look forward to seeing you just take off once you become a city council member, and I know you'll stay in touch with us.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
I too would like to congratulate you. We've had, I think, 3 different people in the years that I have served on here run for higher office, and you're a first. So we do want to congratulate you and wish you the best.
Great, thank you.
And I will just add to that, and the only word that really comes to mind, frankly, is impressive. Just, wow, good job. So then on to Resolution 22-02, Planning Commission. Resolution of appreciation to Nicole Gottberg for her service as City of Placerville Planning Commissioner. Whereas on March 2nd, 2021, the Placerville City Council appointed Nicole Gottberg to serve on the Placerville Planning Commission. And whereas on March 16, 2021, Nicole Gottberg attended her first Planning Commission meeting as a member. And whereas during her tenure on the Planning Commission, Nicole Gottberg served as chair of the commission during the year of 2022 and vice chair during the year of 2021. And whereas Nicole Gottberg's technical background and experience, together with her interest in planning and dedication to serving this community, have been of great benefit in representing the residents of Placerville during her years on the Planning Commission. And whereas Nicole Gottberg was elected to this Placerville City Council on November 8, 2022, and will be seated on December 13, 2022, to continue her new role as a member of the City of Placerville City Council, providing further service to the community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Planning Commission does hereby officially express its sincere thanks, appreciation, and gratitude to Nicole Gottberg for her service on the Placerville Planning Commission on behalf of the residents of Placerville, California. Passed and adopted this 6th day of December 2022. Michael Friend, Vice Chair, Pierre Rivas, Executive Secretary, and I'm honored to have had the opportunity to provide this to you. And so do I sign it at this point, or is that, we'll take care of that later, and do I get a special pen?
Here's the special.
Get to keep.
I have the special pen, and we can certainly,
looks like
we'll
my
sign,
special.
we'll sign it right after the meeting.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So I'll
suitable
move it way
for
over
framing.
here, away from my coffee.
Do we have to have a motion and would it be my honor then, Vice Chair Friend,
Oh, absolutely.
to make the motion to
Adopt the resolution?
adopt this resolution 22-02, recognizing Nicole Gottberg for her services as Planning Commission.
Second that.
I second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 20-22, recognizing Commissioner Gottberg for her service. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
This is your one shot. To be
Aye.
your biggest
Aye.
fan, right? All right, very good. We have a unanimous approval. So passed. Motion 4-0. Thank you, Commissioner Keeney, for catching that.
So, Chair Gopper, if I may, and this is on, it's just a small token of our appreciation on behalf of the Development Services Department. I just want to, again, commend you for your service. You've been just a real pleasure to work with. You're very, very sharp. We always appreciated your inquiries and questions on the project applications. They help us do a better job of evaluating the projects and it makes it for us to be better prepared. So we haven't seen the last of you. In fact, we're looking forward to working with you in your capacity as a council member. And so with that, staff has prepared this certificate of recognition, and it's presented to Nicole K. Gottberg in grateful recognition of service to the City of Placerville as a Planning Commissioner, March 2021 to December 2022. It's very, very nice, suitable for framing.
Thank you.
And it's hand delivered.
Yeah, hand delivered. Oh, great.
Hold that pose, please. Hold the pose.
Come around.
Oh, that's great. Let me get one more. There we go. I don't need the television in the background. Boom. Great. There you go. I'll send those to you, Peter. All right. Thank you.
You might have a member of the, you still got the floor.
Madam Chair, I guess I still have the floor. So we have a member of the audience that wishes to speak. I guess this is an item that somebody can speak to.
Yeah,
we
we
didn't
can
take. We
allow
can
them
take
to
public.
speak.
We'll allow it, right?
Yeah.
We can take public comment. Besides, we know who this guy is.
Congratulations, Nicole. I've watched you when you first became a commissioner, and you were a little quiet at first, and now look at you, just professional and crisp. And I just want to commend you, and highly intelligent. So, congratulations, and you're going to do great over at the same place, different night. So congratulations, and I think the public just needs to realize the volumes of material you all consider for each and every item, even if the item seems like it might be tiny. The amount of documents you have to go through is incredible. So the public should realize and be grateful to you. So thank you all.
Great.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
I just wanted to say, thank you to everyone, and I really enjoyed my time on the commission. I feel like I learned a lot from every single one of you. I know, I didn't have a lot of prior government experience, so I, jumped right in and felt like I learned a lot from everybody on this commission. Really enjoyed working with you. Really enjoyed working with staff, and accepting all my detailed questions I sometimes were sending them or asking them. I know that takes some time to respond to, but I really appreciate that and doing that. So it's just what I wanted to say.
Well, good job. Commissioner List, did you have a comment? Anyone else? From the Be Careful What You Wish For department, I will be seeing you on the 13th. And I'm not going to expand beyond that. Not just you, the other 4 members, but yes, I will be there. So I guess I will now return the gavel back to you.
Yeah.
Madam Chair.
All right. Thank you very much. So with that, we will move on to item 10, and we have no items under that tonight. So we're moving on to item 11, which is our continued item from last meeting, which is the site plan review, SPR 15-04-R, and variance VAR 22-02. Ms. Hunter, could you please provide the staff report?
Of course. SPR 15-04R is a request from the applicant to revise the previously approved site plan review, SPR 15-04, which approved Outbreak Brewing, for building and site improvements to accommodate Burning Barrel Brewing and Spirits. Proposed changes include those to the landscaping plan, maximum occupancy, addition of an outdoor seating area, signage, exterior color scheme, installation of a prefabricated sealand container kitchen, and the addition of a distillery on site. Based on an analysis of the city's development guide, zoning ordinance, and general plan, it is staff's opinion that the project would enhance the commercial sector located along Main Street through the revitalization of a currently vacant structure while maintaining the existing building character and facade trim elements, and would further provide services to both locals and visitors to Placerville. Variance 22-02 is a request to reduce the required on-site parking requirements. It should be noted that the project was previously noticed with a maximum seating capacity of 130, where 33 on-site parking spaces were required. Staff requested a continuance of the project at the previous Planning Commission meeting on November 15th to allow for a thorough evaluation of the revised project. The new proposal, which is analyzed in the staff report dated December 6th, 2022, includes the revised project. Based on a total proposed maximum seating capacity of 76, a total of 19 parking stalls are required on site by zoning ordinance section 10-4-4. Burning Barrel has proposed 14 parking spaces on site, as shown on sheet A00 of attachment C, the applicant's submittal package. Required parking for eating and drinking establishments is a gross calculation and includes requirements for staff parking. As such, Burning Barrel is proposing to lease a total of 5 parking stalls from the city in the Ivy House parking lot, located within a 300-foot radius from the project area. The tentative breakdown of leased parking usage is provided on page 10 of the staff report in Table 3. While the Ivy House parking lot is not owned by the applicant, staff felt that if the business maintains the leased spaces for employees, the city may provide credit for the remaining required spaces. As such, staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the following action. 1, adopt the staff report as part of the public record. 2, that the site plan review and variance request is exempt from environmental review in that the project qualifies for a categorical exemption under California Environmental Quality Act, Guidelines Section 15301, existing facilities, as the proposed project would result in no or negligible expansion of the current use. 3, make the findings of fact in support of SPR 15-04-R and VAR 22-02 as written in the staff report dated December 6, 2022, and conditionally approve SPR 15-04-R and VAR 22-02 located at 640 Main Street based on the project information and findings included in the staff report and subject to the recommended conditions of approval provided as Attachment A of the staff report. It should be noted relevant conditions from the previous approval, 15-04, were pulled and moved to reflect this current project. Following distribution of the Planning Commission packets, staff received and answered an email from the applicant, which was provided to you prior to this meeting.
Great. Are there questions to staff from the commission?
I have a question. I have a couple of questions. Thank you for the staff report. very thorough, as always. Appreciate that. A lot of information in there. My first question is I just want to make sure that I'm clear on the occupancy increase because, obviously the applicant came with one idea, and there was some discussion and memos, reviews, and so on. So my first question is, with the occupancy increasing, does the seating plan now meet the requirements that were specified in the memo from our city building official? That's dated November 4th. And at the bottom of page 1 of that memo, the last sentence is, the aisles in between the proposed tables and chairs do not meet the minimum space requirements. This is for the occupied space. So can you just clarify that statement, that the new configuration, what the new configuration is like?
I don't remember what the distance is, but the building official did review and say that the new revised plans do meet the distance requirement.
So the November 4th memo was before the revised plan
That is correct.
that we were given in our packet. That's where? Right there. Okay.
That is correct.
Fantastic. And the other question I had was regarding using the Ivy House parking lot. The ordinance 10-4-4 has a couple specifications in it. One is the Ivy House within 300 feet of the property.
It is, yes.
Okay. And then there was also some discussion from city engineering. That's another memo. Again, that's dated November 8th. And it talks about leasing, the number of available spots to lease. I didn't even know that people could lease spots there. I've never seen that posted like you see other places. So it says that there are 10. So are there any leased spots in the Ivy House parking lot currently, or is it just all open?
Staff is not aware of how many spaces are currently leased, but staff is aware that there are 10 spaces currently available for lease.
Okay. And then so 10, so we're not sure how many already designated leased, but according to, this is from the engineering department. Right, okay. So, but they assure us that there are 10 more available, of which the applicant is considering leasing 5. Okay.
Yeah, the engineering department doesn't manage the leasing program. That's through another department.
Okay. Okay. And my last question is regarding, it's kind of a what if. Again, using the Ivy House parking, we know that there is planned construction for the Clay Street Bridge. What does staff, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, obviously that's going to be construction zone. What's the alternative during that construction? And construction is probably going to take 18 months, 24 months, I don't even know. So what do you anticipate happening when those 5 spaces are no longer available? Obviously they would, once construction's buttoned up, they would become available again. But what do you anticipate would happen?
Okay, these are just assumptions, but staff would assume that the parking lot would no longer be available during construction. I don't think the city would desire to have even cars parked near the construction zone so that cars could be potentially damaged or anything like that. So it probably will be out of service. It was sort of a coincidence, but staff had a meeting yesterday with Marshall Hospital, and they're currently leasing the lot that is directly west of Locust and next to the Toy Tech building, just north on the north side of the El Dorado Trail. So that is city-owned lot and is currently under lease with Marshall. Well, they just have the representative of Marshall just happened to mention the staff that that they aren't using that lot, and they were unaware that they were even leasing it. So we're hoping that'll become available, and I'm assuming that will become available, and that would be to serve other parking needs while the RV house parking lot is under construction. Reconstruction, I should say.
Yeah, there's no, I walk by there often, and there's no signage of, Marshall Hospital, restrictions. And I've parked down there often, so I didn't know I was trespassing. But so now, hopefully, we can get that cleared up shortly.
No, you're not trespassing. It's city property.
Even though it's leased to someone else, they, won't have my car.
They're not using it.
But they're not using it. Okay. Thank you very much. Those are all my questions.
Other questions for staff?
Thank you. This is for staff. A number of places in the description of this, it used the term brewery, which I assume is brewing beer, and then distillery. Are they going to be brewing beer and distilling spirits?
I know the applicant is here in the audience, and they can answer this likely better than me. My understanding is they'll be bringing beer in from their other location and distilling on site.
Distilling on site?
Distilling on site.
Okay. I know nothing about all this. Okay, so I need a little education. Beer has a certain alcohol percent. Distilled spirits have a much higher alcohol. Do I need to ask them that question? Okay.
I think that would be.
That's fine. Okay.
Yeah, we'll get
All right.
there after staff questions.
Okay.
Any other staff questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So going back just briefly to the parking, and I think you explained it in your presentation, Kristen. The 19 spaces that's required by the formula also includes what would be needed for employees.
That is correct. We have a gross calculation for parking. So one parking stall per 4 fixed seats.
Okay.
And that it's a gross calculation and includes employees.
And that includes the employees. Because I was having a hard time understanding how even the allocation with the Ivy lot would have helped. Okay, that explains that. Just kind of a general question, and this might be for Pierre, I don't know. As we indicate, this project will have some pedestrian orientation, right? Inviting to pedestrians. Do the parking calculations take that into account? Oh, and are they kind of outdated with regards to that? And really contemplative? They're based upon people driving to a location as opposed to walking to a location. I guess where I'm going with that is the seating capacity, assuming there's enough space inside and outside, could theoretically be higher because you could be accommodating pedestrian traffic. You follow what I'm saying? And not simply allocating space for vehicles. Does that make sense? And so I'm not, I guess, so the question is, does the formula for parking, does it take into account, or the seating capacity take into account pedestrian use?
That's a good question. So let me back up a little bit and talk about just parking, and I'm going to just reiterate what Ms. Hunter said. Basically, the calculation for determining what is required, the required parking stalls for an eating and drinking establishment is 1 parking stall per for 4 seats, and so it is a gross calculation, and so it's sort of this section of the ordinance is probably a little outdated, but typically it relied on a statistical analysis of like businesses where it just determined that is the typical number of parking stalls that you want to see for this type of business. And so in regards to pedestrians, the parking calculations aren't considering walk-in pedestrians. So I guess looking at the national trend, you look at a lot of cities, Sacramento included, a lot of large cities are drastically reducing the required parking. I guess it's sort of a way of getting people out of their cars, trying to, sort of engineer more pedestrian-oriented type of development as opposed to auto-dependent development. So leaving that aside, when we look at the pedestrians, then that's sort of now we're looking at the occupancy of the building based on the building and fire codes. And so there's a maximum number of persons that would be allowed in that building under the building and fire code, which is different than what we're looking for when we're calculating parking. So I don't know if that's helpful to you.
Well,
but
it is kind of, I guess, and I don't want to belabor it too much, but let's say an applicant, in this case might apply, it's got really tiny parking area, right? Just in Placerville's got lots of issues. Really tiny parking area that theoretically could drive, so you can only have so many patrons. But the applicant could then argue, yes, but what about pedestrians? I could, account for pedestrians as well. And so not necessarily for this application, but I think it is something that perhaps we should give some thought to, and we could probably use it as a basis for a variance, I would assume. It would be a defensible, assuming there's enough space and you're meeting all the fire codes, et cetera, that, you got a tiny parking lot, which should only allow you to have so many patrons, but it's certainly reasonable to think you could also get pedestrian traffic, and as long as you got enough inside, space, and that would be good to go. So that's where I was going with that.
I would just add that, and you would see this more typical of larger projects that have a much larger amount of traffic, maybe a shopping center or different things like that, where a lot of times the battle isn't you're not providing enough parking, but you're providing too much parking. Mm-hmm. And so there could be variances where an applicant is seeking additional parking because they want to have that extra 50 to 100 parking spaces during the Christmas rush. Right. And then the city isn't interested in having a sea of parking lot and pavement. So in a situation where an applicant feels that they're not being adequately accommodated by our code, they can certainly hire a professional, a traffic engineer or some other expert that can actually do a study based on more the intrinsic characteristics of the area and come out with a parking calculations that's less, and that would then address your pedestrian issue.
Gotcha. The other question that I have is, and it only shows up tangentially in the report, and I don't think you discussed it at all, and that's the whole, the kitchen and the sea land container to be used as a kitchen. And I didn't see a really good description of what that is. I kind of inferred that nothing is being, there's no fryer in it, at least right now, but if they were to put a fryer in it, then they have to put in the grease pit and all that. But it's still very unclear to me what exactly the kitchen is, how it's going to be used, and I kind of think that should be explained a little bit more and possibly might need to be specified as a condition so that it's really clear what it is. So I'm anticipating it's more of a snack shed, and I'll allow the applicant to kind of explain what it is. I will say right now, I don't like the term kitchen only because to me it implies food preparation. And I'm not sure that's what we're talking about here. Or maybe it is, but there really wasn't a whole lot mentioned in the staff report. So if staff has anything to add to it now, great. If not, we certainly hear from the applicant and describe what the activities are.
I would just add that getting to the details and the specifics of the kitchen, we look at it as a kitchen based on what the applicant has provided to us. It will require permitting through the county environmental management, their health department. So we look at that as more something to be reviewed with the building permit and not necessarily through the site plan review process, where the site plan review is looking more at the parking, site design, layout, the elevations, that kind of thing, not really the nature of the kitchen unless it's causing something that's going to change our recommendation regarding parking.
Fair enough. I do think, at least for me, it would still be nice, since it's mentioned, just a brief description of what it's going to be. Otherwise, you're kind of left to be guessing. Obviously, you don't have to go into a lot of detail, because as you've just described, it sounds like the activities are going to be handled through the Environmental Management Department. But still, I think it would have been helpful to have had a little bit more information on that item. So,
Thank you. Pierre, I was also concerned about the kitchen aspect of it from the standpoint that this piece of property, the last time it came before us 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it was very specific that food was not to be processed on site. It would be prepackaged food. And here it calls for a kitchen. I was assuming it was a, full-blown kitchen, grease traps, the whole thing, and yet I kind of got the feeling that they were piggybacking on what was existing from the last people that were in that building, and so I was a little concerned about the idea of a portable kitchen and the jurisdiction where that fell, and I think you answered that part of it, but I still am concerned about, at one point we said, no, you can't do prep food on that site. It all has to be prepackaged, and this time we're calling it a kitchen. So you see where I'm coming from on that?
Yes, I do, and please forgive me, I don't recall why we would have said they weren't permitted to have food service on that site, because eating and drinking establishments are permitted by right in that zone. It's by right. So it's really up to the property owner what they want to submit for our consideration, and this is a site plan review rather than a conditional use permit where you're looking at operational aspects of the project. Here it's a little bit more limited to elevations, the site design, the parking layout, and the like. And so we apologize if the staff report got a little complicated. I know it shows a lot of the interior, but mainly that's for the purview of showing the commission how we calculated parking, not that the commission can modify anything that's proposed within the interior of the building. That's all within the building permit phase of the permit application. I don't know if that's helpful, but I'm curious I don't recall why we would have said, other than if the applicant themselves told us we're just going to be a brewery, a microbrewery, not a restaurant, which is their purview.
That was my understanding, having reviewed the past project, was that Outbreak didn't want to prepare food. They didn't want to have the grease trap have to go through that process. And so that was why it was included in the conditions of approval, that if they did prepare food, they would have to install that.
So it was more from their side, not the city side?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
So I had another parking question. Have there been other food and drink establishments outside the downtown parking district that have sought out variances in the parking? And if there were to be, would there be sort of enough available leased parking, say in this Marshall lot, if Marshall gives up their lease, that sort of the same opportunity would be afforded to other similar types of businesses?
That's a good question. I would say no, I'm not aware of any other commercial business that has sought a variance to reduce the gross number of parking stalls. We have had a few where the applicant was requesting a increase in the number of allowed compact spaces. The limit is 20%, and we've had a few applications coming in to request more compact, but nothing where they wanted to reduce it. My recommendation would be that the commission consider maybe a condition that says that at the time, if they were to, or at least fashion a condition, that they have to maintain these leased parking spaces for their employees. They couldn't obtain leased parking spaces for patrons, but only for their employees. And if they were to lose those, or something were to happen where they're unavailable, for whatever reason, that then their total number of occupancy as far as what's permitted would have to be decreased accordingly. That's what I would recommend, because the city affords no assurance that any leased parking or spaces in the future or during construction will happen. Marshall may change their mind and hold on to that lease for something they're doing. We don't know. But I just wanted to daylight that. That was just a coincidence that came up yesterday.
I'm actually sorry for you folks. This must be driving you crazy, but I'm getting a little bit confused on this now. The more I thought about it, because when your question, Nicole, I thought of the Main Street tap room down at down the way. Right? They don't have hardly any spaces out in front of their building, but they're immediately adjacent to a public parking lot, right? So they can accommodate all of their parking just because there's parking there in the parking lot. They don't have enough for all their seating. And then it got me to thinking, why do we even need to require this lease? I mean, there's parking. There's plenty of parking. When Outbreak went in, I recall the discussion that there was parking in the lot, on the street, and also down at the Ivy House parking area. I don't know why we need to have the leasing requirement, because the parking for them can be met immediately and in the general vicinity. And I think that's how the Main Street Tap House is met. They've only got like 4 or 5 spots immediately in front of their business. I'm just, all of a sudden I've gotten confused, and I'm not sure we need to have this lease requirement.
Well, I can speak on the tap house. They
Sure.
were entitled at the time of their construction for their parking, and it had to be adjusted due to the sinkhole.
But still, I mean, the seating capacity of that place is at like 125 or 140, I can't remember, between inside and outside. It's pretty substantial.
Unfortunately, I don't know the details of the tap house, but I know that prior to the sinkhole developing to that part of the parking lot, they were leasing parking from the city.
Well, I'll accept staff's position that the lease requirement is necessary. I don't see it as such, but obviously I'm not the expert.
I'll try and explain it
But
from staff's perspective.
I'll simply accept
Sure.
it, for expediency. I don't mean to complicate it, but just starting to process with my little dinosaur brain, it's almost like, wow, I don't understand. So.
Staff was trying to assist, if you will, maybe a little bit beyond what the code says. The code says that you're allowed to use a parking lot off-site within 300 feet that is a control or owned by the applicant. Well, this isn't the case. And so we wanted to be a little creative and afford the applicant the ability to enter into these leases so that they can increase their seating capacity. If they don't want to lease, they don't have to, but it reduces then their maximum seating capacity.
And the public house is met between on-site and the parking garage. That's how they meet theirs.
The public house is a little bit different. The public house is located within the downtown parking district, and so by city ordinance, the only time that any of the businesses within the downtown parking district are required to provide for parking is new square footage. So in other words, even a change in occupancy within the envelope of any of those buildings, even if that change in occupancy is going to generate the need for more parking, they're not required to do so.
Thank you for indulging me, everyone.
Are there any
Actually,
more
I thought those
questions
were
for-
really good points. I respectfully disagree with your evaluation. I feel like parking is a premium in that area, and times when Outbreak would have an event, especially when they were obviously at the or close to the maximum of their occupancy, there weren't any available spots at all. So I think this is an important aspect, and I think it's important for us to discuss the leasing, how that kind of accommodates what 10-4-4, that's the ordinance number, right? Allowing there to be off-site parking under your control, essentially. The ordinance says, under your ownership, but, a lease is under your ownership. And I think that's a really good point that Mr. Rivas made about adding a condition about maintaining those leases. That's very important. Or have a concomitant reduction in occupancy. And the discussion about pedestrian access kind of made me think of another concern I had. 10-4 states that the off-site parking is not to cross a main thoroughfare, which obviously Main Street is. And that's raises a big concern for me about just public safety. And what I wanted to ask staff, their opinion, if they know, is there any available parking, obviously not city-owned, but just available for lease, that's on the same side of Main Street as the business would be? I know there's some lots where there are, like across from the tire shop. So that's all on the same side of Main Street, but are there any other possibilities for leasing 5 spaces, and did you explore any of those possibilities with the applicant?
No, we did not. Because when you look at what exactly that section of the code says, it's the applicant to actually try and find additional parking or acquire land for parking. Mm-hmm. We just thought of maybe there's an opportunity here where they could lease parking stalls for their employees, which would then count against their required parking. Mm-hmm. As far as a thoroughfare, it's hard to see any business in the city would have another off-site parking where it's going to be in the same side. That's difficult if you're looking at Main Street or Broadway or any of the other. That's the extent of the main extent of the commercial areas in the city.
And that is one of the constraints, certainly. Okay, thank you.
Any more questions to staff, or can I invite the applicant up? Great. I will invite the applicant up at this time. If there's anything you'd like to say first, you can come up to the podium, you can say that, and then I'll open it up to questions from the commission.
Hello. So I'm Jack Alexander. With my wife Kirsten, son Duncan, and his wife Emily. We're really excited about this project. We've been longtime residents in El Dorado County, and for those that don't know who we are, we've started the brewery in Rancho Cordova, about a little over 5 years ago. Actually started it long before that, opened it, and then it's done fairly well. We've gotten a good reputation, and now want to move into having a second location closer to home. We've lived in the area, as I said, for quite some time. Duncan lives in greater Placerville as well. And so this will be really nice for us to have the ability to do something with all El Dorado County, all Placerville stuff. So that's been the pursuit here. And so there'll be a production. We already have our production brewery in Rancho Cordova, and so we'll be serving beer in this location. And then there's a very small pilot distillery that would be a part of this, because the building's quite small. But it'll be for all the experimental stuff. We want to do things using local ingredients, if possible. Local, like in our gin, local botanicals and that sort of thing, locally foraged, and do all the experimental stuff there within there. And then the purpose of the kitchen is really just to have the minimum bona fide meal requirement that you have to have in order to do things like allowing tastings of the beer and spirits in like a cocktail type form. Otherwise, you're really, really limited. Distilling is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the country as far as tastings and consumption and that sort of thing. But, gosh, let's see. I guess I'd be open for questions and all that as well. And I got the brains behind the operation, Duncan, that can answer things that I can't.
Great. I'll go ahead and open it up to the commission for questions. Commissioner
So
Friend?
I'll go ahead and start and look forward to this project. I think you're absolutely correct. It is going to be a tremendous addition, and it's exciting. I forget, or maybe I never knew, about the food requirements. I think it's more for distillation. I think you don't have to. I've forgotten so much, so let's not even go there. If you wouldn't mind just kind of explaining what the food requirements are.
It has to be.
And second part of my question, sorry. And then just kind of give a description of what the kitchen thing is all going to be about.
Sure. Yeah, the kitchen is really, I mean, it is technically a kitchen, but there's a concept of a commercial kitchen in a box now that you can just actually get through these shipping containers. They look really nice, and it would be finished and looking like the details of the building. But our intention would be to have the minimum bona fide meal requirement that is required, which is actually, I think it's an ABC thing for that would allow us to do the food. But there's places that, like, I don't know, Flatland Brewing, if you're familiar with them in Elk Grove, they do that. They have a pizza oven in the container adjacent to their.
So if you pulled a taco truck up and then just took the wheels off and put it on like jack stands, it's kind of like that concept, or it's not near that much?
No, well, you can.
Sorry, Duncan Alexander here, and I've been doing research for quite some time and talking with other companies across California that are now utilizing this popular route of obtaining a bona fide eating establishment. Essentially, it is not a mobile kitchen or anything like that. The sinks are connected to the sewer line.
Okay.
It is essentially a finished, health-approved container kitchen that is commonly utilized in older buildings, that the infrastructure of adding certain elements is not really feasible, and creating more space inside. And so this is not some temporary thing. This is health department approved, insulated. The utilities are hard plumbed. And the bona fide eating requirement is 3 hot meals and 2 cold meals. And so we're trying to meet that requirement to be able to serve the spirits we create in a cocktail form versus having the very low daily allowance per customer of a tasting in which you're not even able to charge a customer, making it.
That's great. That's really helpful. The only question I have then is, what's your time frame? What are you guys looking at for time frame?
Well, as soon as we can get approvals, it does take a long time, obviously, to get everything coordinated with the architects, and it took us, gosh, so long just to find an architect that would take the project. Yeah. So that seems to be the biggest problem, is just getting through the planning, the submission, the permitting. But we're chomping at the bit to go. Yeah.
And how large will the pilot distillery be?
The pilot still is a 50-gallon, okay. Which doesn't sound like much, but you can produce a large amount of like gin or vodka in that, and that would probably be where most of the gin, especially the experimental stuff, is done.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions for the applicant? None there. Do you have any, Commissioner Keeney?
I just want to clarify from the memo, November 8th memo from Melissa McConnell, Engineering Department. So obviously you're trying to fit into this space and with the kitchen. So there's a statement that in her memo about typical non-cooked pub foods. But I just want to make sure that we're all clear that in the event that you start cooking food, then that triggers other requirements that you're going to have to meet, and you're fully aware of that.
Yeah, like the grease trap if we were to have a fryer, or a hood if we're going to have a range. There's certain requirements for that, but these kitchens actually come with all of those requirements.
So they're ready to. It's just a matter of you connecting it, getting it inspected, make sure you meet the building department's and sanitation requirements.
Yeah, and we wouldn't obviously do anything that wasn't permitted by the city and the health department and all the fire department, all that. So.
Are you planning on having the non-cooked pub food to when you first roll out, and then, or are you anticipating of just when you open, you'll be?
We'd have to have the bona fide meals in order to do the cocktails.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the whole basis that we probably couldn't open without that, is because otherwise the whole purpose of the project wouldn't be possible.
And functionally, so that container, I like the idea of this. I know that these, it's been a challenge for other restaurants up and down Main Street, the older plumbing and trying to come up to modern standards, if you will. But this sounds like this unit is, it's ready to go. It's just a matter of hooking it up. But as far as how are you functionally going to get food from there to the person overlooking out on the street? Do you have a covered pathway, or how do you anticipate that working?
It's there's a back door, like an employee door.
So it'll all be like covered and connected to bring the food
not
forward?
necessarily covered. There'll be pathways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you'll have to find a way to get the hot food. Okay. Thanks. I just I really poured over this, and a lot of questions came to mind. How are they going to make? Because I think, like other commissioners, this is a very intriguing proposal, and we want to make sure that it's a success. And so as we go through this, it's you start wondering what are some of the practicalities. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I see no further questions here for the applicant, so you can go ahead and sit down at this time.
All right. Thank you.
Great. I'm going to now open this item up for public comment. Would any member of the public like to make a comment on item number 11.1? All right, I see none, so I will bring it back to the commission for discussion. Is there an area we want to start with? Parking variance, kitchens?
I think the main thing is, for me, having food available is really important, particularly for if you're serving distilled product. So I think it's great what they're planning to do to meet that need. So that's all good. I know Duncan, and I know his brewery down in Rancho is right around the corner from the one that I had eons ago. And I know how they run, and so they're going to be a great addition to the city. I'm all on board with this. I think it's going to be great. So.
I think this holds great promise. Outbreak tried a lot of different things, and it seemed like they would get going and then have a setback. And as I took a walk around the site after we got this packet, and also just by driving by, frequenting Main Street. I think what they're proposing as far as their design is excellent. It fits in. It's not a big change from what's there, but I like the change that they're proposing with the roll-up doors, and the facade treatments. And so I think it's going to be a real benefit for that part of Main Street. I am concerned about the parking issue and public safety. but I also have to take into consideration that in trying to make a going concern, Outbreak sometimes would hold events that maybe they didn't have the proper permitting for, or they didn't know how to control their crowds. And so that became, to me, I don't know that we had any accidents or anything happened, but passing through, it'd be very congested. And I thought it was a great impact on the other businesses up and down Main Street. So I have to, I realize that my decision is in the light of how the owners of Outbreak kind of behaved. And, we've had so many challenges with COVID. They not only had to move outside, then suddenly there was a huge beer garden, and I don't even know how many. And then they would have a food truck, so it just got really pretty constrained. What's the word? I'm a little crazy down there. What exactly was going on? But I think that's why I'm very concerned now that we're going to consider a new business and an amendment to the site plan review. When we allow the use, it runs with the land, and this is our time to make sure that we get it done right. And having said all that, I'm really impressed with the package and the information that the Alexanders provided to us, and I have a lot of confidence. Also, you have a successful track record already, so I have a lot of confidence that you've looked at this and you think that you can make this a going concern, and it will actually be a benefit to our Main Street area and our dining and drinking options.
So, two comments, if I may. Actually, and of course, Tim is a really good friend of mine, and Tim Daniels, an Outbreak good friend of mine. I will tell you the most dangerous part of that location that Outbreak had, and that was people running between their location and the Independent. Okay, and the Independent would be having their cocktail happy hour, then people would run over to Outbreak Brewing. And now, of course, we can jaywalk because the state has decided jaywalking's cool, right? And people dodging cars, speeding up and down Main Street, it was like Frogger, So that's really where I think the danger was. Looking at the conditions on page 19 of the staff report, item 5, Roman numeral 5, item 4, it says Burning Barrel and Spirits has proposed leasing in total, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't read like the appropriate condition. And I'm happy to retain the condition, Commissioner, particularly with your concern for safety and Pierre's explanation.
Where
I'm on page 19 of the staff report.
And
right, under recommended Planning Commission action.
okay. And
So it's Roman numeral 5, item 4, right? I would like to modify the language of this condition slightly, okay? And so it would read as follows. Burning Barrel Brewing and Spirits to obtain leasing a total of 5 parking spaces from the Ivy House parking lot or other available location, because I don't necessarily want to obligate them to just that spot, to be used for staff. This will satisfy, and I'm not even sure we need this in the condition, but we'll keep it. This will satisfy the remaining required parking per zoning ordinance section 10-4-4D-4, right? So that would be my recommended change to that condition, because Pierre, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming Roman numeral 5, item 4 is a condition, right? That's a recommended condition. Kristen, is that a recommended condition?
It's a finding of fact.
Oh, it's a finding of fact.
Yeah, I apologize. All the
I see.
recommended conditions of approval are in attachment A.
So-
But we can still amend that. We can make it more
So then
clear.
the question, well, instead, then perhaps we should move that entire finding of fact over to attachment A and just make it a condition then.
Yeah,
Right, you
under
follow what I'm
1E,
saying? So we'll take out, we'll just remove the 4, but I
Yeah.
hope you like my language, because I think the language it reads better as a condition. That's probably why it didn't look like a good condition to me, because it was a statement of fact. So I would add this as...
I think it would replace 1E, I believe.
right.
on the conditions of approval.
And honestly,
Oh, yeah. And this is proposed, so that's not a good reading for a condition, I don't think.
Yeah.
I'd like to make it more vague. In the event that the applicant could possibly find private spaces that are on the same side of Main Street, that would alleviate my concern. You mentioned people darting across Main Street
Yeah.
from one to the other. That's kind of what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And there are crosswalks, but I am very concerned about public safety. So under 1E, if we made it a little more vague, say,
Well, I said other available locations.
just say we'll lease 5 spaces, including
Within-
identification
And not even
for
identify
employees.
where,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They'll obtain.
We won't. Yeah, we won't. The Ivy House parking lot is available and can be used certainly.
Would we want to require them to be within 300 feet per the code requirement
See,
there?
I think the problem is we get really restrictive that way. I think we require them to find 5 off-site places.
Mm-hmm.
And however they make that arrangement, that they're meeting, that's the need. That
Right.
satisfies the parking ordinance.
I think, as I said, my concern is this, the main thoroughfare of Main Street, which is also stated in 10-4-4.
Yep.
So if we're making a variance, then let's allow them, to find this least parking, wherever they can find it.
All right. So,
and then let's also add one more thing, that staff recommended that they maintain those leased spaces. I'd like to add that, I think, as part of 1E. If the maintain those leased spaces and they are lost, then the site occupancy will be reduced accordingly. Again, just leaving it kind of a little bit open. Let's say, they can only get 3 spaces.
Okay, so I want to make sure I'm on the same page with you. First of all, on page 19, item number 4, which was, as Kristen said, it was a statement of fact. Question is, do we need to retain that?
Sure.
We want to retain that, but do we want to rewrite it to also be more vague? It says,
No,
well, the burning barrel and
this
spirits.
is that's part of their request at this moment. So let's go ahead and leave it as
So that's their solution.
describing their request.
So that's a statement of fact. Here's our solution to meet the park. Okay, then I'll withdraw all of my comments on that. So then the conditioned requirement, as the chair accurately pointed out, is 1E. It can't be proposed because this is a requirement now, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we'll
it would
lease.
just be-
So it can't be proposed. So it's applicant to obtain and maintain. right?
Okay.
Obtain and maintain
Obtain and maintain.
the leasing of 5 spaces, right? Obtain and maintain the leasing of 5 spaces, including identification employees. That means we have to say who the spaces are assigned to? Help with that?
Only employees, not patrons.
Oh, I see, okay. All right, well, obviously, there's going to be a big sign that says brewer parking only, right? And distiller parking only, under penalty of, okay, no beer for you, come back 1 year. Okay, so obtaining and maintaining, including identification of employees. I still don't like identification of employees.
That's a little-
Sounds like whoever's working there has to be identified.
Maybe just identification of employee parking, right? Because that's what you're getting at, that the space should be
Is that
reserved for
a term
an
of
employee versus.
That,
What does that clause mean, including identification of employees? What does that mean?
Well, the restriction would be employees if they were leasing parking from the city. If they were to obtain, say, if they had another lot within 300 feet, that would satisfy their parking overall, patrons and employees.
Right, so, but.
The restriction was only because it was city.
Yeah, but do we not want that to say, obtain and maintain at least 5 spaces to be identified as employee parking only? That's really what we want to say? It's employee, I'm getting a nod from Kristen.
Yes, as long as it's for burning
Employee
barrel
parking,
employees.
Reserve, employee parking only, burning barrel, right?
It would be burning barrel providing the parking for their employees.
Okay.
And their employees are instructed
Yes,
to park,
okay, right, so I get
not on
that.
site.
At least 4, yeah, I think I get what the intent is. They're going to obtain and maintain the leasing of 5 spaces to accommodate employees. That's what we're doing. We're accommodating employees, right?
Right.
And to be clearly identified as employee parking only for Burning Barrel, right? So then no patrons can use it, right? Theoretically, okay. And I don't know if we need this received November 9, prepared by Brewing Barrel Spirit, because this is a condition now.
Right.
So we need to rewrite this. So I would just strike that.
Strike that next.
Yeah, just strike that.
I apologize. This is actually, that list is a list of submittal items that were included in attachment C. I apologize. Just now
so
noticing
I
that. It's a narrative that was submitted by Burning Barrel.
I
That's
get
why
it,
the date
but-
is there.
But recommended conditions of approval is attachment A, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so, all right, so you know how to clean that up, then, right? Obtain and maintain. Commissioner List?
May I?
Yep.
I'm going to play the devil's advocate here, and I'm not saying you guys would do this. If you left it open that they can find a parking spot, 5 parking spaces, doesn't matter where, you didn't put any distance on it, they could, in a sense, go up to one of the doctors up by the hospital and say, hey, we want to lease 4 of your spots, and the guy goes, you can have them for $1 a spot a night or whatever, okay? They fulfill that obligation. Now they can park anywhere they want. So I think you need to say it has to be within a certain distance.
Okay.
Otherwise, man, I'd be looking for the cheapest spot I could find because I knew my people would not be parking there.
Where would they be parking?
On the street, in their parking lot. If the city came to them and said, where's your lease? Oh, my lease is up there.
So
If you don't give,
Yeah,
pardon me.
no.
If we don't say within a certain distance, then you're opening up the whole city for them to find a place to park.
Find leasing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And please understand, I'm not saying you guys would do that, but I have seen things like this. Okay. So I would
And you're
strongly
right. I mean,
recommend.
we like the proposal we're presented with tonight, but this is runs with the land. So if they change ownership and the next ownership isn't as above board, if you will, and tries to do something like that.
Well, if we
So-
just,
Can I ask a question to staff here? So the Ivy lot where they are currently proposing their parking to lease, that is within the 300 feet, correct?
That is correct, and so is the lot by the bike path.
Okay, so if we put a 300-foot restriction, which is in accordance with what the language is in our current ordinance, they essentially could do what they currently want to do and are proposing to do.
So the only variance then is that we're allowing them to go across a main thoroughfare.
Yes. Yes, we're saying within 300 feet, and they can lease it from the city versus it being a private lot. It also could be a private lot, but we're giving them that ability.
Yeah, there would be nothing to keep them from going down across the street to, I think it's Sacred Roots. I think that was the name of the.
yeah.
Okay, and they have a pretty good sized parking lot and leasing 5 of their spots.
Yeah, that's
wouldn't-
within 300 feet. And
it's
also,
within 300 feet.
Sierra
Right
Tire
across
Center
from
has a big
Sierra
lot, you know, if they
Tire,
wanted
Right
to.
across the street, I think there's leased parking there, right across the street from the Sierra Tire.
Yeah.
South side of Main Street, I think there's
I,
leased parking.
I don't know that that's within 300. Well, if the one by Toy Tech is, that must be. That's the one I was thinking of,
Yeah.
that is on
I
the
know,
same side of the
correct,
street.
Yeah, it's by the Zeiss
Mm-hmm.
Brewery ruins,
Yes.
which would be nice to preserve. That's
Mm-hmm.
a different topic.
I'm just saying, if we put 300 feet, which is what it's in our code, they would essentially be allowed, the applicant that's in front of us tonight would be
Yeah.
allowed to do what they would like to do. And it also gives more flexibility
Yeah.
for things such as when the Clay Street Bridge project comes around
Yeah.
and the Ivy lot closes, they have more options on where to go versus reducing capacity.
I like it. I like
Right,
that.
but they
So-
still have to stay within the 300
They
feet.
still have to be
Yeah.
in that distance, which
And
is,
that's defensible because it's in the ordinance.
it's in the ordinance,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, obtain and maintain leasing 5 spaces within 300 feet, right? For the express use by employees and to be clearly identified as employee parking only, right? And that's also to give patrons a heads up, hey, this parking is reserved. That way, the only thing we're really dictating is that they have to get the lease, and it's got to be within 300 feet. Those are good points, sir.
Does staff have any concerns regarding that condition of approval? No. Okay, great. Is there additional discussion here related to parking?
I'd make a motion.
All right. We ready for a motion?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, Commissioner List.
I yield my time to the gentleman from the north.
I will be voting no on this. Took a little walk today, and along Main Street there are 15 locations where you can buy wine, beer, and spirits in downtown Placerville. And I asked myself the question, why do we need another one? I looked back a couple weeks ago to the crime log for the city of Placerville. And a very large portion of what was in the crime log were intoxicated people that were arrested either on Broadway or in downtown. And I asked myself, well, is this a good thing for the city, for the people of the city? And I came to the conclusion that it's not. I think there are plenty of places where people can purchase alcohol. And I don't think that by adding one, we're improving the quality of life in Placerville. And I'll leave it at that.
I appreciate the commissioner's honesty on the topic. Yeah. Okay. So I appreciate the honesty. That's good. That's straight up. There's no reason to argue for or against it. So, but I respect that a lot. Just to put that out there. I will say, as a former owner, it's our responsibility to make sure that we aren't serving people who should not be drinking. You know, the law aside, okay, the risk management of life. I mean, we have just a responsibility as professionals, right? Duncan, I think, are very similar that way. You know, we really respect the craft, right? And so having people get stupid, it's a bad mark. So, but I appreciate your comments, Commissioner. But I am, if there aren't any other comments, Madam Chair, I'd be happy.
I just wanted to speak to what Mr. List said. Yeah, there are quite a few eating and drinking establishments already in our city, but it's not our purview to inventory, restrict that in any way. Applicants come to us, they've hopefully done their due diligence and know their market research, and they feel confident that they can make this a going concern. As I took a look at the site of the old Outbreak, it's falling into disrepair. What I like about this application, your concern is, I think, well grounded. We have a lot of these eating and drinking establishments, but no one else has come forward with a proposal for this site, and I like this proposal. They're going to reconfigure it and make it an amenity and a benefit to Placerville, and I honestly wish you the best of luck to make it a going concern. Outbreak was a lot of fun. I was a customer at times, but they also they struggled. And so as far as the well-being of our community, I want to see thriving businesses, and we can just, as far as serving other needs and sectors of our community, hopefully other applicants, as we, become a thriving, metropolis, other applicants will come forward and give us a broader range of services. And so, John, you made a good point. There's but it is not our responsibility to say what kind of business goes in a particular building, as long as it meets all of our zoning regulations and is allowed, by the rights, the regulations that we have.
All right. I'll entertain a motion if there's no further discussion here.
Well, I'll move that we approve site plan review SPR 15-04-R and variance VAR 22-02, adopting the staff report as part of the public record, with the findings that this project is categorically exempted from CEQA as specified in the staff report, the findings of fact in support of the site plan review as laid out on page 18 of the staff report, the findings of fact in support of the variance 22-02 request as laid on pages 18 and 19 of the staff report, and then adopting the conditions as specified in attachment A. Looks like items 1 through 12 with the modified language for 1E. I hope I don't have to restate. I think staff caught that. That's my motion.
Is there clarification needed on the language, or are we?
No, I believe we're all right.
I wrote it down, so any commissioners need clarification on the language?
Probably need a second before we have discussion.
I can second it then.
Okay, and to clarify for myself, because I forgot, we retained Roman numeral 5, item 4. That we didn't change that. We just kept that, right? We didn't do anything with that. Page 19.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we
not
just left it.
that.
Afterwards, we just said no, that because that's what they were offering or whatever. So that stayed. And then, if I recall, the language for 1E was obtain and maintain a leasing of 5 spaces within 300 feet of the location for the purpose of the sole exclusive purpose, sole purpose of use by employees, and to be clearly identified as employee parking. I think that was essentially the language, right?
Yes,
I want
it's close to what I have.
to be. I thought that's where we inserted the language. If the lease spaces were lost, occupancy would be reduced
accordingly.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
I forgot that. So,
Okay.
Kristen, was that already part of it? If the lease spacing was to be lost, the seating, the allowable seating would be reduced accordingly. Did you have that?
I think that was part of the language you proposed.
Okay, great.
And we have that written down.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. I concur. I'll just assume that's what we proposed. So that's good.
I wrote it down. If I can read the whole thing, if folks would like.
Yeah,
obtain and maintain leasing of 5 spaces within 300 feet for the express use of employees to be identified as employee parking, lease spaces if lost, I just messed that up. Be identified as employee parking only if if leased spaces are lost, site occupancy will be reduced accordingly.
You got it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's it.
My scribble.
Could we
but
be more wordy?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, and we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion on this item? No? Okay, can I get a roll call vote?
Vice Chair Friend,
Yes.
Chair Gottberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Keeney,
Aye.
Commissioner List.
No.
All right, the motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner List voting no. There will be a 10-day appeal period if anyone would like to appeal this decision to the City Council. And with that, we will move on to the next item. Do we have any new business tonight?
We do not.
Okay, great. So we're moving on to matters from commissioners and staff. Are there any staff reports?
Just a brief staff report. Staff had a meeting with the project engineers, the project proponent and the engineers for both the Mallard and the Middletown apartment projects. And so we're just happy to announce it looks like it's moving forward. The city was successful in obtaining a bridge loan in order to finance the land acquisition and close escrow. So the city will be making application to the Housing Community Development Department through the Community Development Block Grant funds to get reimbursed for that. We'll also get reimbursed for all of staff's time in pursuing these applications and the work done to date. So are happy to see those move forward. I have nothing really to add to the, it's called the Clementine, that's the Placerville Armory apartment project. They're calling it the Clementine. And so my last discussion with the state on that one, actually Jamboree, that's successfully got the contract through the state to pursue the project. They're still working on obtaining additional funding for that. Let's see what else. We did have a meeting yesterday. I think I mentioned earlier that staff met with Marshall Hospital staff, their facility staff, and so they are looking at their parking requirements, and it looks like they may not need to build additional surface parking lots. They're looking at reconfiguring some of their lots, and they think they can accommodate their required parking within their existing facilities. They also, if you recall, for a number of years, they were under a temporary use permit authorization for, I think, is it 4 or 5? 4 trailers that they were using as offices. So that's going to be expiring. Staff is going to give them a little leeway, maybe an extra month. They're trying to seek a new home for these trailers, but their use will terminate probably towards the end of February. So we're happy to announce that. We won't have to bring that back before the commission again for another extension for another year. Right, and the commission did approve a temporary trailer that was their CT scanner, and they will be removing that. They have constructed their permanent CT scanner room within the hospital, so that will then go away. Trying to think if there's any other projects of importance. Right, they're going to install a Tesla generator in the back of the hospital for backup energy. Staff does not feel that we will need to bring that back to the council for site plan review because it will be completely hidden within their yard in the back portion of the hospital. It won't be visible from any roadway at all. It will be behind existing walls and the like. So. Let's see what else. We will be, I guess we should mention, we'll be canceling our next regular scheduled meeting on December 20th. We will not have a meeting on December 20th, and we'll also be canceling the January 3rd meeting. So your next meeting will be scheduled for January the 17th.
What about the holiday party?
Let's have one.
It's going to be late.
All right. Are there any items from planning commissioners?
I just had a question. That Tesla generator project at the hospital reminded me, what's going on at EID? There was a Tesla generator project that the Planning Commission approved, and now they're building a big, I don't know, retaining wall or something around it. Can you give us an update on that? And I don't remember that being part of our project, but.
We spoke with them a few months ago. They completed a lot line adjustment, and that has gone to the recorder's office. We still require a landscape maintenance agreement. As far as we know, it's underway. They had, I think, issues finding a contractor or something along that line, but it's underway. We can give you more details via email.
I thought it would be online by now, but I drive by often, and there's still a lot of building activity going on.
Any update on the hotel up at Point View?
Yes, we provided them with a building permit application. We're hoping for submittal by the end of the year for their building permit. So it'll go in the plan check.
Okay.
Don't know yet.
Is there anything else? Nope. All right, great. It is 7:30 on Tuesday, December 6th, and I am adjourning the Placerville Planning Commission meeting. For the
January
last time,
17.
thank you all.
Yeah.